Well, good Saturday afternoon, and here in Sedona it is spectacular. It's beautiful, and the weather's nice. It's expectedly windy, but that's just how the Red Rocks got so sculpted the way they did. Eons worth of wind, and it continues to this day. But I had an interesting question about the bikes, and that is, okay, why is this breakout, this Harley Davidson breakout, more of a challenge to maneuver, especially in low-speed maneuvering, than this big Road Glide ST? And it's a difficult question to answer because, if you're, let's say you just gone through and finished the MSF course, and you did it on a smaller motorcycle, even though this is a technically this is a mid-size cruiser. This is a Harley Davidson 48 Sportster. This happens to be one of the very last ones made. And let's say you took the MSF course, the basic course, to get your endorsement. And let's say you did the right thing, the smart thing, and you went to Harley Rider Academy, and let's say you did it on a Street 500 or the newer, I think it's a 350. But one of the school bikes, and they are outfitted with, with crash, essentially bars fore and aft, extensions on the handlebar ends right there. And that's, in case you, flop the bike over, the bike's not hurt. You're more than likely not going to be hurt either. But those are lightweight bikes, and they're very, very sedate in their manners. And that's, I'm sure that some of my my fellow cycle enthusiasts and maybe an instructor too would affirm that that's, also in order to familiarize and facilitate a new rider, completely a virgin rider with no experience, into the motorcycling world. Now, is it a good idea to go straight from one of those units into something like this, a 900 plus pound touring bike, with a very powerful engine, and especially, say, in the case of a Road Glide, you have this big fixed fairing. So let me show you what that means. Your handlebars turn, but as you can see, the fairing, that's this bit here, it stays put. Now, if you went with a Street Glide, it would still have a fairing on it, but the fairing is attached to the handlebars, so it would turn. And to each his own, because you'll have those that like that police style setup, and you'll have those that like the Road Glide setup, which is kind of my thing. I like them both equally. I could kind of go either way. I just happen to like the looks of this bike better. So is it smart to go from a 350 or 500 or even a 250 into one of these? Probably not. Is it a good idea to go from one of those bikes into a bike like this? Very, very likely no. Now, there's differences. So the breakout, the first generation breakout, this is a 2016 breakout with the twin cam 110 engine, or 103 engine. There's a couple of things working against you. The big fat 240, or in the case of this bike, the 250, I went with a 250 rear. And the fact that we have a rather dramatic rake. Let me get you up straightened up here. Okay. So, see what I mean? You see that angle? Now, in the automotive world, we call that caster, and we call that pretty extreme positive caster. Not so much for this Sportster 48, and not so much for the Road Glide, the Tourer, okay? Now, that big fat tire and that big extreme rake would mean that this thing, not to mention the fact that the first generation Softails, but especially in this incarnation, has a very modest lean angle. So when you go to lean the thing over, you're going to go about that far. It's about 22, 23 degrees, and you're going to begin to hit pegs. And likewise for that side. So low-speed maneuvering be a bit of a challenge. You can certainly do it, and I'll be going to intermediate training. So when I get a different bike, I always go down to Rider Academy, and I run the Rider Academy on the new platform. I do it because training equates to muscle memory. The more training you have and the more practice that you bring home from training, the more responsive your brain will be to unforeseen events. And it's so important in motorcycling because there's so many distractions and just people being stupid. So if you were to go from, say a beginner bike or more of a sedate bike to something like this, you'd really need to take some time and maybe take it to an intermediate academy course or find a local parking lot, set up your camel cones, and run drills. And don't have the expectation you're going to be able to run, blue box drills on this thing. It's just not going to happen. So be patient with yourself, but run some drills, get used to how it corners, which is it's very resistant to it. But it will certainly do it. I did some things to this motorcycle to make it fit me because a breakout does not fit me. Not the least of which is the stock drag bars are a no-go. They're too low. These are actually off of my old Fat Boy. I know the guy that had bought that bike, and he swapped it. He put apes on it and kept the original bars. And I said, hey, man, I want to buy these bars from you. And so I bought the bars. And with the risers, and I was able to invert the mirrors, so now I can see under my arms rather than try to peek over my shoulders. And it works perfect for me. So now this bike is fit to me. And with that, I did some low-speed maneuvering today, and I did some hairpin corners because mainly I wanted to figure out where lean angle was and then program it into my memory so that when I'm doing switchbacks and stuff, I know that, okay, I'm going to have to slow down to about 15 miles an hour for really, radical, say 120-degree switchbacks because this thing is going to drag. And the moment you're hitting pegs, because you have those little wear indicators there, those little alarm indicators, you have maybe 2 or 3 degrees, and then you're dragging frames and probably high siding. So you don't want to do that. So what would be the challenge here? Okay, let's talk about center of gravity. One of the advantages of a Softail, especially the newer ones even easier to handle, including the newer Breakout, is that you sit low in the saddle. So your center of gravity is going to be living right about here. The ST series in both the street and the road glide, as well as the lowrider series, the bike sits a little higher, so you get more lean angle. This is a performance-oriented machine, but we have about 120 pounds, 150 pounds worth of dead weight up here. So your center of gravity isn't here like it is on that Softail I just showed you. It's up here. It's more forward and it's higher because you have this weight now hanging over the forks, okay? And so when you go to, say, back it up or maneuver it, what's going to happen is this is going to try to pull you down. And that's a bit of a learning curve. I had never ridden a road glide. And so when I hopped on this thing the first time, I knew that, okay, I'm going to have a different center of gravity over this over a Softail. I was on the Fat Boy at the time. And I was going to have to, respect the bike. And so when I got on it, I wasn't moving. Basically, I just kind of I put it in neutral and I rolled it forward because I wanted to see how this thing was going to pull on me when I cut the forks over either way. And I realized, okay, I'm going to have to lean it. Let's say we're turning this way and we're backing up. I'm going to have to lean it more this way in order to counter effect gravity trying to pull me down this way. A learning curve. And then I took it over to the high school, set up some cones, and did low speed on it and realized, okay, this thing actually performs very well at low speed. But friction zone and matching RPM to clutch travel, that was really important with this machine. And once I mastered that, I could do anything with it and still can. Took it to the Rider Academy, did fine. My only fault, I think I scored probably, even though I've had my endorsement for a long time. When I took the MSF portion, the skills portion, I actually screwed up the stop because I couldn't see. I hadn't trained myself adequately to anticipate stopping distance and where I could stop on or in the square. And I actually stopped short of the square because I just hadn't trained to that point. And so I took that back home and I ran some skills checks and skills tests on this privately. and was able to master it and get it down and lock it into muscle memory. And so that's where training and that's where practice comes in, because like anything, this is a perishable skill. You can't just expect to hop on these things after you've ridden a mini bike when you were 7 and go. It doesn't work that way. Not only is your skill set maybe totally wrong or not adequate, but it's also going to be incredibly rusty. So that's the difference really between the challenges of a motorcycle such as this one and the challenges of a motorcycle such as this one, should you get your start on a motorcycle such as that one. I hope that clears up anything. If you have any questions or what have you, please dial them my way. We will have a bike blessing tomorrow at the dealership, and the dealership is Legends Harley-Davidson in Mayer, Arizona. Excellent place to go, and I strongly advise you to pay him a visit. All right, that's it for now. Thanks, bye.